So, Bob, I'm going to start with you. You have a great way. You told me this earlier of how you describe yourself now.
Okay. My name is Bob Swanson. I'm a man in long-term recovery from alcoholism. What that means to me is I have not had a drink or a drug since January 24th, 1988. I'm a 65-year-old man. I have 27 years of long-term recovery. Had my first drink when I was 14. I had my last drink when I was 38. I have found a way to live my life without drinking alcohol or using other drugs.
And you were telling me that when you were drinking, if somebody had said, Bob, I think you have a problem, you wouldn't have believed them.
Number of times in my life as I was, I'll say, confronted about my drinking. I just blew it off. When I started drinking, I had my first drink when I was 14. It was normal to drink. And as I got older, I was in the Marine Corps for a couple of years. I learned to drink, I guess, in the Marine Corps. And then when I got home, I just continued. And from time to time, people would complain about my drinking. And I would just blow it off, saying, it's, you know, everybody does it. It wasn't a big deal.
Mm-hmm. And you said that the way you finally woke up was rather different.
Right. My alcoholism took me out of my first marriage. And one of the things that I saw in that, as a result of that, is I didn't want my children growing up in an alcoholic home. I didn't know what an alcoholic home was at the time. But what I did is I wanted to get involved in a concerned persons group that they had at the local hospital. And I went and I talked to the counselor who was there, and I had to go through a substance abuse assessment. And the person had the audacity to tell me that I was probably an alcoholic as a result of that assessment. And I decided at that time, well, if I am, I am. If I ain't, I ain't. I'm going to find out. Mm-hmm. And from that moment on, I have not had a drink.
That's an amazing journey. Now, Carroll Ann, you were telling me you also found out in a rather unusual way that you have a family history of alcoholism.
I do. I spent my entire life living with alcoholism, parents, uncles, marriages, and I certainly knew that there were unfortunate, dangerous, unpredictable things that were going on in my family, but like most of us, what we're used to it becomes our definition of normal. And so I didn't identify it as being associated with alcohol. And when I was at Northern, going through the social work program, I went to a training program and saw a presentation on alcoholic families, and it was breathtaking to me. It was life-changing. I looked at it and I said, that's my family. That's me. That's my family. You mean that's alcoholism? And yeah, it changed my life in every possible way, personally, professionally.
And you were also telling me that on the outside, if somebody were to, you know, say what your family was like, they would not have been in that pigeonhole people like to put the alcoholic family
Right.
in.
I came from a family with many gifts. Education, the alcoholics in my family were working professionals who were very successful until later on. Their alcoholism did have an effect, and we looked good. We looked good. We created a picture for the rest of the world that didn't really match what was going on in our home, in our relationships, in our life.
And you had also said that with the families, there were 3 things that you learned.
Yes. Some alcoholic addicted families are not like mine and live with violence, with poverty, with lots of destruction in different ways. But one of the common things about alcoholic families is that the members of the family all learn 3 rules. I learned it at about the age of 7. One is don't talk. Don't talk about what's going on. Family business is family business. Don't trust. Don't ask for help. You certainly, because of the unpredictability, broken promises, are not trusting people in your family. And the third rule is don't feel. And that's another thing that you don't trust, is your own feelings. I remember as a child saying, I'm scared, or I'm sad, or I'm confused, and being told there's nothing to be scared of. It's all those sorts of things. So those are very restrictive rules. To not talk about what your reality is, to not have people that you can trust, including yourself, and to not even be able to feel like your feelings are okay.
So normal that it's scary. It really and truly is.
Right, right.
Now, Bob, you had also told me that an alcoholic, you had mentioned family, and you're not alone if you're an alcoholic. You told me some shocking numbers of people that each alcoholic impacts.
Right. One active alcoholic negatively affects the lives of 9 other people directly. 9 other people. 16 others less direct. So who are the closest people in your life if you've got a drinking problem? It's family. And family needs to be able to recover, have an opportunity at recovery also. An alcoholic can get sober on his own, but without the support of family, it's really difficult for a person to maintain that sobriety.
Sounds like it is a lifelong struggle.
Absolutely. I'm 27 years sober. It's gotten easier, but it hasn't gotten easy.
Gotcha. Now, when, say you're a family member, a close friend, it's hard. It's hard to come up and say, I think there's a problem. How do you start? How do you start something like that?
Very often, it requires a great deal of patience because, well, first of all, it's not helpful at all to talk to someone when they're under the influence of alcohol or a drug. That's useless. It's dangerous. It rarely achieves anything other than more frustration, more fear, more anger. However, from time to time, an opportunity will present itself, a door will open, and what I suggest to people and what has worked the best for me is to say something along the lines of, I love you, I care about you, and I'm seeing things that frighten me, that cause me concern. And these are the things that I'm seeing. And then button it. Give that information, give those facts without judgment, without anger, without shame, because people who are in the grips of alcoholism and addiction are consumed by shame. They may not look that way, but they are. It's what drives addiction beyond the brain disease. And then taking care of ourselves, being whole, healing, finding a way to have a healthy life ourselves. Because those of us who've grown up and lived with alcoholism have developed some ways of surviving. You know, there are roles that we take on in our families and in our workplace and in our lives that protect us and allow us to survive, but at some point, they really start to take a toll on us and not become a functional way of living or conducting relationships or working. And so we need to go and find our way into a healthier way of living, so that when and if the alcoholic or the addict is ready for help, we're there and we're in good enough shape to be that support that they need.
And I think one of the things that I found surprising, because Bob, when you shared your story with me earlier, you said you didn't drink every day. It wasn't an everyday occurrence.
That's correct. I was what would be referred to as a binge drinker. I didn't drink every day. I didn't drink every weekend. I drank when I had money. I drank when I didn't have money, but that's beside the point, that part of it. I always found money to drink. the drinking that I did was usually on a weekend, and it revolved around paydays. And then when I drank, it was always to excess.
And now, so a person gets to the point where they say, you know what, I hear what you're saying, and I'm seeing myself reflected in your stories. What's the first step to get help? What do you do? Do you call your doctor? Do you call your friend? I mean, at some point you have to call and reach out to somebody. Who's a good first contact?
I don't think there's any wrong door. It's about starting to break those rules, and the first one is break that rule about don't talk. Probably not a good idea to go home and talk about it. That might be dangerous and not helpful. But yeah, doctors are wonderful first people to talk to. Pastors, best friends, if you're a young person, a teacher, someone that is trustworthy. You can certainly go to helping agencies, mental health agencies, addiction treatment centers, and say, you know what, I'd like to talk with a counselor, very much like Bob's story. I'm worried about my children. And he walked through that door on behalf of someone else and found the help that he needed for himself. So I think there really is not a wrong door. The point is to say, you know what, this is not the way I want to live my life, and I'm going to find people to talk to me. Self-help groups, gosh, really just anybody. Keep talking until people say, you know what, I've been there. Because you will find somebody. There are lots of us out there. Lots of us who are in recovery from alcoholism, lots of us who are recovering from living with it. And if you keep talking, someone will say, you know what, yeah, that makes sense to me.
I think the best time to take and find the opportunity to bring something up to someone, if you're concerned about their drinking, is when there's been a significant emotional event, when something has happened to them as a result of their behavior connected, doesn't even have to be directly connected to their drinking. That's the best time to make the call, or to call them on what it is that you're seeing, and do it in a kind, respectful way. I know, and I was criticized a lot, my drinking. And people would stay away from me. They wouldn't say anything. I just wonder, if somebody would have said something respectfully to me, how it would have been, how much sooner I may have come around. And I'm grateful just to have found out what was wrong with me before it was too late. And I know that my family is too.
It's very interesting because we all might have some idea of what our significant event would be, but for someone else, flunking a class or losing a boyfriend or failing to get a promotion might not be a big thing. For some people it is. It could be that first drunk driving. There are people who've had 13 drunk drivings, makes no impression, but the minute their child doesn't want them to come to their birthday party, that's a big deal. Yeah. So that has to do with those opportunities and windows or doors opening that I mentioned before.
Okay. And one last question, because both of you have commented on it, and it's that genetics does play a part in this, and that's part of the fear for your kids that you have for your children. Right. Is that this is a family disease in more ways than one.
Right.
Right. I know that for me, I look at my family of origin, and there's my parents, my siblings, and I have my 4 children of my own, and I can see it. I can see it, and I don't call any of them on it, simply because the pain is there, the shame is there, and it's like just I know what it is that's happening, and it's sad that I can't do anything about it.
And I think it's also really important in our culture. We have such a strong bias about the power of environment. And while, yes, we do learn choices and behaviors and patterns in our families, the genetics of this are very interesting. When you look at studies done on children who are separated at birth from alcoholic or non-alcoholic parents and grow up in a different kind of environment, alcoholism develops more often in the biological children of alcoholics, regardless of whether they're exposed to it or not. So genetics is a big deal. It's a great big deal. We don't learn to be alcoholics. We learn to drink. We learn to drink heavily. We learn some unhealthy behavior patterns. But not everyone who drinks heavily, and we all know these people, not everyone who drinks heavily will become an alcoholic. That's where the genetics kicks in.
Makes the big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I missing anything?
I would like for me to be able to say something. I want people to know that alcoholism, drug dependence, there's hope. That yeah, I want to be known as a face and voice of recovery. I've got this long-term recovery, and I am one of probably in just the Upper Peninsula thousands who are celebrating this thing called sobriety. We have long-term recovery, and there's many people who know who I am. There's many people out there that are in recovery that other people know who they are. Those are the people to seek out, you know, if somebody wants some help. The stigma that's attached to alcoholism and drug dependence is just huge. Same thing with mental health. There's more understanding about mental health these days than there is about alcoholism and drug addiction. And it's like, I am not lazy, crazy, stupid, or bad. I have a disease called alcoholism, and I have found a way to live with it. Very successfully, I might add.
And I would like to say that there is hope and help for those of us who love and are living with people with alcoholism and addiction, and it isn't dependent on whether the alcoholic stops drinking or not. Okay? We can find a way of life and continue to care about, love, and support these people, but heal ourselves and find a way of life that's manageable and reasonable, independent of what the alcoholic's choice is.